Hey guys, how we doing? Back on another video from Clyde. This one's been a while coming. I'm still trying to play catch up with a load of other videos that I wanted to do a while ago. Ranking the Espada. Now, I'm trying to think, because all the Espada were numbered. So, from first thought, you'd just be like, well, duh, it's number order. But, do you need to take things into consideration? Like, let me think now, because I know there has to be a reason this video exists. Ulquiorra had his transformation that made him stronger than what his actual number was. Depends how far we're going into the series. We're going into the manga, because Grimmjow becomes pretty strong later on. And didn't number 10 have a hidden thing where he transformed and was number 0? Oh god, it's been ages since I've watched Bleach. But yeah, so it's not as simple as just number order. And so Clyde's the guy to, you know, he did all the videos with Seth and that, like, and he knows Bleach. So let's get into this.
If you're a Bleach fan and you want to see more Bleach content, hit that subscribe button.
Check him out.
I decided, as someone who is known for my Bleach knowledge and direct workings with
the
programmer on our
Nnoitra
good
Bleach videos, man.
videos, that I'd make an updated 2019 definitive scale on how strong the Espadas are today. This video will include the conventional list of Espadas that we know and love, while also telling you where the current Nell, Halibel, and Grimmjow stack compared to characters like Ulquiorra and Yammy, who thanks to the series and old data books were regarded as the strongest Espada. As it goes without saying that the Espadas who are alive right now in the story, whether it's the manga and the novels, are completely different in power to how they were under Aizen. I won't be including characters like Loopy because he's lame as hell and I honestly don't care for him whatsoever, and Wonder Weiss is more like a tool for Aizen, which he made specifically for Yamamoto more than he is an actual Espada. It's also hard to scale him because the only people he fought was Kensei and Mashido, who he slapped both of them, and he fought a bare-handed no Zanpakuto Yamamoto, though Yamamoto was just playing around with him the entire fight.
Yeah, so
simply,
leave that.
I would put Wonder Weiss around the level of, say, Ukitake or Byakuya in strength, if not stronger than them. To start off the list, we'll go with Aaroniero. Although there is not really much to say about Aaroniero, literally the only impressive thing about Aaroniero is the fact that this guy is able to consume over around 30,000 hollows in his lifetime.
Crazy.
And has the ability to closely replicate the people that he kills with their abilities, physical appearance, and even their Zanpakuto nature type or attributes. This is further confirmed in the data books, showing his ability works very similar to Majin Buu. So if he were to hypothetically absorb a Vasto Lorde, he would get their power, appearance, personality, and spiritual pressure. Apart from being a cool little tool to scale other characters in the series, Aaroniero was defeated by a fodder tier Rukia who got routed in one jab by Grimmjow. This only happened because he was playing around the entire fight and he seems to enjoy mentally abusing his opponents, which later led to him leaving himself open for Rukia to be able to beat him. Even while messing around, he still managed to essentially kill Rukia anyway, as she would have actually died if Hanataro and Byakuya didn't appear. Now, I genuinely do believe that Aaroniero would beat Rukia with no problem at all if she didn't have plot armor, although his only feats are actually slapping her around when higher characters in the series would put her on her knees just with their spiritual pressure alone, so it's safe to say he is absolutely first on this list. Coming in next is Szayelaporro. To be completely honest, just like Aaroniero, there isn't a lot to say when it comes to Szayel, and Szayel fought against Renji and Uryu, two characters that weren't even really captain level, if not barely relative to a captain, and Uryu at that stage in the story was arguably weaker than he was in the Soul Society arc with his pseudo-vol standing called a Quincy Lechstil that he used against Mayuri, which was the same guy who came in and out Elon Musk'd Szayel. Now, his ability to capture you and then individually injure each of your organs is quite complex and handy in a fight, but an ability like that gets easily negged if you had someone like, say, Kenpachi or Nnoitra there who would simply just flash over to him, tear his head off, and the fight would end before he even gets the chance to use it. A good example of how useless he can actually be when it comes to a fight against someone who's a lot stronger than him is actually in the Hellverse episode where he fights against a guy called Shuren. Straight after using his Grand Rey Zero, he gets negged really easily, so Szayel is a bit of a meme. For number 3, we have the 6'5" Chad himself, Zommari,
I'm
aka
confused with the numbers. The first one was 12 and then gone 10-9, but anyway.
A surprisingly hype Espada given his rank, as Zommari Zommari actually has an ability called Hemeros Sonido and Resurrección Buqueria, which gives him the ability to slap a tattoo-type seal on basically any object, but it's mostly used to control limbs and other parts of the human body once they're hit. It's actually so dangerous that when Byakuya is hit by one of them, he cuts the tendon in his leg
so he doesn't, it's like, get rid of that.
Although he is later defeated by Byakuya, a character whose power fluctuates throughout the series from having trouble with a guy who learnt Bonkai in just a few days to defeating second release Yammy with the help of Kenpachi, it is a little weird that Zommari could be considered strong in the slightest, as it's never really implied Byakuya went through some huge training arc within the time span of the Soul Society arc and the Hueco Mundo arc. One thing we could say is that if Byakuya truly did have a big role in defeating second release Yammy, and he wasn't just a support lane player for Kenpachi to get the W, then this might imply that Zommari's Sonido is actually as fast as he says, but the problem is that Yammy barely ever, if not ever, uses Sonido, and even Ulquiorra claims that he doesn't know how to use Pesquisa. I guess the fact that Zommari did decently against Byakuya is probably the biggest compliment we can give him, though Zommari seems to be wanking himself off in regards to his, quote,
he does give himself a lot of
and the Ichigo in
boosts,
the Soul
doesn't he?
Society arc with his speed feats seems to be more impressive to Byakuya. Nnoitra Gilga. The problem with Nnoitra is that Nnoitra got dicked on pretty much the entire series. He was beaten by Nell so many times that he developed this Frieza-hating Goku attitude for Nell to the point where his life revolved around surpassing her and being the strongest. He travelled across the universe, he trained, he tried to surpass her Super Saiyan form, he was really set on beating Nell. Even after he got stronger throughout the many months that she was a toddler, she was still able to outspeed him, outdamage him, and did very well for someone whose spiritual pressure was leaking the entire fight and was not at full strength. When he interrupted Grimmjow and Ichigo after their third fight, he cheap-shotted Grimmjow and actually had to flex a little to hold off Ichigo while he was protecting Grimmjow until Nell actually transformed. The Ichigo and Grimmjow that he fought were both pretty much
cheap shot
when he arrived. Even when you say, well, he did okay against Kenpachi, and pushed him to use Kendo, I've always loved that scene, but imagine being defeated by your opponent just because he puts his other hand on his blade. That's pretty embarrassing. Nnoitra's efforts only get diminished by the fact that Kenpachi was not even at full power throughout the entirety of the manga at that stage until the actual war arc. Nnoitra fought a Kenpachi who was suppressing himself even while
I use two hands now.
Excuse me. Shikai Ichigo in the Soul Society arc, which many claim shows inconsistencies with Bleach's power scaling, who Nnoitra would actually one-shot that Ichigo when in actuality it just proves Unohana was correct when she states Kenpachi has been holding himself back for many years in hopes he'll find an entertaining fight and not accidentally kill his opponent. Kenpachi also never even trained within that time span, yet he had this insane dormant power sitting inside of him for the entire series, where he can go from Soul Society Shikai Ichigo level, who needed the help of Zangetsu to keep up with him, to being able to cut planetary meteors.
Like take that down.
Nnoitra Gilga does deserve this place on the list, but the reality is that he never stood a chance against Kenpachi from the very start. And if he were to hypothetically fight an uninjured Grimmjow or Ichigo in a one-on-one fight at that point in the story, he might not even win those fights. Just like Zommari, his statement about having the, quote, hardest hero is a little wacky, because first release Ulquiorra could stop a full-powered, holified Getsuga Tensho just by standing still in his first release, let alone his second release, or pretty much any other Espada's hero who is ranked above Nnoitra. Barragan Lusenban. Next on this list is Barragan. Now, Barragan is super easy to scale, as for someone who considers himself the king of
everything,
he truly stands no chance against the likes of, say, Yamamoto, who should be his rival in some regard. It's actually a little
you would think when you're within status.
Had any beef or dialogue towards Yamamoto or even Grimmjow, because as you would think, Barragan would, probably dislike Yamamoto. I would guess he's kind of like the leader of the guys that kill all his dudes.
His dudes, yeah.
And stuff, and
I think that's what I'm saying, like status-wise,
king of Hueco Mundo, something which would directly rival Barragan, yet neither of the two really have any beef or interact at all whatsoever in the story.
Yeah,
just a little issue.
would have been interesting for plot.
Not a huge deal. Though when it comes to power, he has some pretty badass abilities. He can slow down and manipulate time in his base form, as shown with Soifon's encounters with him by using hand-to-hand combat. In his release date called Adagante, he can age almost anything his ability touches.
Yeah,
he even has the capability of aging something like a Keto, which isn't even a physical object, and when Soifon is touched by his ability, she gets on Mida to cut her arm off to stop it from spreading to the rest of her body. With the help of Hachi, who is a Keto master, he manages to help Soifon defeat Barragan by using his own ability against him. He he didn't really live up to the hype of what I would expect the ruler of Wako Mundo
Yeah,
to be when it comes to
bit
power,
disappointing.
especially when it's sort of implied that he's quite old too. When Yamamoto's shown off and when he starts, flexing his powers, it shows the power of someone who's over 2,000 years old. Barragan just feels like a sort of high-tier Espada at most. Now, Hachi might be a captain-level Keto-based fighter alongside his Holification, but Soifon isn't exactly the most impressive, and to be outpowered by their lame teamwork where Hachi had to promise her a favour just for them to be able to work together correctly,
The lame teamwork.
that Barragan lost to those two.
Yes.
Coming in next is Coyote Starrk. Now, Coyote Starrk is
So
in this
cool.
spot because, frankly, he just isn't a very convincing fighter. It's stated that he had the most spiritual pressure out of the Espada,
Yeah.
and thus is why he can fire so many Zeros. In fact, according to the data book, he can fire an infinite amount of Zeros if he wanted to. Though the way he was played with by Shunsui and Ukitake is a bit of a letdown, considering he was number 1.
Yeah, he was number 1 when he was, I was saying,
absolutely
he
isn't a joke
ranked
by any
real
means.
freaking
In fact,
high.
He's actually one of the higher tiers in the verse itself, but he wasn't even pushed to use Bonkai and still was able to defeat Starrk. Starrk did show some pretty cool intelligence throughout the fight and was able to analyze Shunsui and Ukitake's abilities and so on. And
Yeah, but,
I liked his gun.
They weren't pushed to the limits, were they?
I thought that was quite cool because Taite Kubo had always wanted to implement guns into Bleach, but because of the setting, it wasn't really something he could do.
Yeah,
quite
difficult,
often, so
innit?
That's why you only ever see 2 or 3 characters use guns. But the Infinite Zeros part is basically the most impressive thing that Starrk has, and maybe the fact that he can use his Sonito for very long distances, which is actually something that Yamamoto compliments Shunsui and Ukitake on because they can use their flash step over a really long distance, and this is something that we don't really see with the Espada, whereas Starrk is the only one to really show that he can use it from really long ass distances.
Here we go.
There you go. Yammy is quite the interesting character when it comes to ranking the Espada, as he is like this huge powerhouse with absolutely no brains at all whatsoever. He is just pretty much essentially a glass cannon. It's
Just a
revealed in
berserker.
Bleach that he was actually the strongest Espada the entire time and has this Hulk/Broly-like ability where the angrier he gets, the stronger
he gets.
This goes well with the fact that Yammy is the Espada who represents the aspect of death having to do with rage. Before
There
the
we go, so he was
recent
10 and
reveal
then it's
of
0,
All
innit?
Hollows having a second release form, he was actually the only other Espada other than Ulquiorra to have a second release form at the time. It's also interesting to note that it's even stated when he and Ulquiorra first go to Earth that they weren't actually threatened by Ichigo, even with the fact that he was able to cut Yami's arm off and blitzed him.
It's just like
the
whatever.
interesting thing about Yami and Ulquiorra having a secret rank and Ulquiorra having this hidden second release form is that it's almost like Aizen purposely made them two to be stronger than the others on the down low.
Yeah,
the reason
like-
I'm placing Yami this far on the list is due to the fact that yes, the data books in reference to the Wako Mundo saga do imply he is actually the strongest
But
Espada
that
and
saga.
wasn't even phased by Ulquiorra's death. He wasn't phased by Ulquiorra's second release power, which he could actually feel from the top of Las Noches, and he wasn't even phased at all whatsoever by any of the attacks that Ulquiorra did from above there, alongside even the Vasto Lorde, which he should have been able to feel the spiritual pressure of, right? First release Uki is a Black Zero, Uryu and Orihime fall to the ground because they can't even stand, yet Yami doesn't even care and refers to Ulquiorra as trash later on. I would say that the biggest downfall to Yami when it comes to his ability to be a strong character is his fight IQ, non-ability to
He was
use
so
Sonito
dumb.
or Pesquisa correctly, if not even know how to use Pesquisa at this stage in the story, and he seems to only be good at spamming attacks like Ballas and Ceros, so it shows me that he is really useless. Although him being defeated by Kenpachi and Byakuya in his second release to the point where it was actually done off-screen, which was a little weird,
Yeah.
what's more funky is how he ironically had trouble with Rukia, Chad and Renji in his first release. A lot of people would say, oh well, you're an idiot for not putting him further on the list. Well, what's the point in being this huge powerhouse if you can't even hit the enemies that you're firing your attacks at?
Yeah,
especially
like, you
when
just
they're of the level of
bulk
Rukia,
him,
Chad and Renji,
and you
the
just
same.
can't get
Coming
anything.
up next is everybody's favorite Espada,
Ulquiorra.
Now, the reason I'm putting Ulquiorra above Yami and Starrk is very simple. What Ulquiorra lacks in mindless destructive capability, he makes up in his intellect.
Oh,
where
definitely.
He was so valued as an Espada that he was essentially Aizen's assistant when it came to most things. It's also confirmed that he was actually sent on
Strength
more
isn't
missions directly by
everything. I
Aizen
agree
than
with
any
this.
of the other Espada, and Aizen seems to trust Ulquiorra quite a lot. Another interesting note is that Ulquiorra was stated to know about Yami being stronger than him in raw power the entire time, time, though he still viewed Yammy as inferior due to him being an absolute moron, it's very much
Well,
implied that Aizen gave Ulquiorra special favors with his power, as Ulquiorra claims he hid his second release from Aizen, but Aizen is the one who actually gave them the ability to use Resurrection, thanks to the help of the Hogyoku, and in this manga shot here, it's sort of implied that Aizen knew Ichigo would manifest his Vasto Lorde form against Ulquiorra's strongest form, as Aizen knows how powerful that Vasto Lorde form actually is, and he specifically states he had Ichigo fight particular hollows one after another to develop his power because he was interested in how Ichigo would turn out.
He wanted him to be strongest he could be when he fights him,
as they were very relative to one another in strength, and second release Ulquiorra, although weaker than the Vasto Lorde, has the ability to counter a Zero from the Vasto Lorde with equal force by using Zero Oscuras, which improves its power by an order of magnitude, being times 10 according to the data books. This is the same Aizen who had intricate plans that stretched over 100 plus years, so for him
just
to
like,
have Ichigo's Vasto Lorde form only fight first release Ulquiorra would be incredibly silly. Just like how it's incredibly silly that Ulquiorra thought he was the only one aware of his second release form. Aizen literally invented and based Resurrections off of Bankai's, meaning he literally made Ulquiorra's second release of the Hogyoku himself. Before Aizen even arrives at Hueco Mundo, it's shown that Vasto Lordes don't even use transformations. They're already pretty much at max power all the time, so if you take Halibel and Ulquiorra for example, when it comes to Ulquiorra's backstory and Halibel walking around with her Fraccione, they're shown to just be walking around in their final forms all the time. It's just that Aizen upgraded those said forms and then was able to turn them into sword releases because it's much easier for them to carry around the sword and just release whenever they want. Pretty easy to understand. Now, as for Ulquiorra's power, he should be a lot faster than Yammy. He's much more mobile. His intelligence far surpasses Yammy. He has high-speed regeneration, pesquisa, and Zero Oscuras that can multiply his attack by an order of magnitude, being times 10. And
totally
even if
agree
Yammy
with
somehow
this.
has more firepower than Ulquiorra, Ulquiorra can sit really damn far away, and he can spam Lanzado Relampagos, which are stronger than those times 10 Zero Oscurases, and he can even counter a Vasto Lorde Zero, which can definitely injure and definitely kill Yammy. If Ulquiorra was sent to Karakura Town instead of, say, Halibel, it's safe to say that Yamamoto would have had to be the one to step in and actually kill him. That is how dangerous Ulquiorra is.
Here we go.
Tia Halibel is always a character that I've actually found quite cool, as she was so much stronger than Lisa and Toshiro that Kubo had Aizen neg her himself. Probably
Aizen had to get it, didn't
he could have made, because having her alongside him, plus, you know, good old Gin, and going to the Soul Palace, it probably would have helped out. As, you know, to be fair, he would not have had a very fun time with Ichibei or all of the Zero Squad attacking him at once. That would not have been a fun experience at all whatsoever.
Not a fun time.
Also super badass too, as water-based characters aren't really common in Bleach, as it's usually just ice-related instead. But nonetheless, Halibel, as it stands, is the current queen of Hueco Mundo, and was so strong that apparently Yuha Bark was the one who had to step in and defeat her himself, meaning she impressed him a little bit, for whatever that's worth. As we have seen him, you know, manhandle the likes of Kenpachi. That Kenpachi is quite stronger than Halibel. So. Also, with the time skip happening in the story of Bleach, it's absolutely apparent that she would have gotten monstrously stronger, as she compares herself to the current Grimmjow that exists, though she is also quite scared of him at the same time and thinks that it would be a bad idea if those two were to fight. Yet this was also stated before that we found out Grimmjow has a second release form, so it's not looking too favourable for Halibel in that sense. Although we don't see much of Halibel, if not barely at all, post Aizen slashing her, it's safe to assume that this is where she would rank
be over the top,
Neliel Orangefuck is honestly one of my favourite characters in Bleach. She is probably one of the most badass written females in the series, alongside Yoruichi, with Nell's fight against Nnoitra, the low-key narrative about masculinity, which Kubo actually did right in a non-condescending way. And in general, Nell has a very lovely personality in her adult form, but is also a character you know can throw hands. There's only really two major things to say about how strong she currently is in the story, and that's that she was originally meant to be ranked number 3 pre-time skip, and while injured and weakened, she almost killed Nnoitra. Then she reverted back to a child as she was in the process of throwing the final blow, yet at full power her release would be even stronger, and she would no doubt spank Nnoitra pretty quickly. Even if the rankings were changed while she was a toddler throughout those few months where she was weakened, I don't actually believe that it changed that much to the point where he was one whole level above her. She would still be at least number 4 in power without any injuries, as she is definitely relative to the Kenpachi that beat Nnoitra. She also doesn't seem intimidated by Grimmjow when he suggests that they should fight in a mocking way, whereas Ichigo and Halibel find him to be quite intimidating. Though I do think it's because she knows that Grimmjow actually likes her, and this
yeah,
is why
he's
they're showing working
joking
together
about.
in the manga, and also have sort of a lot of, you know, comedic relief in the story. This is why she, you know, then saves Grimmjow, and this is why Grimmjow hangs with her when he comes back in the manga and also in the novels. Yet when you look at Grimmjow, a lot of his narrative is about being a lonesome hollow who wants to be the strongest, the king of Hueco Mundo, and finds weak people repulsive. It's safe to assume that thanks to the fact that Urahara helped her out and she won't turn back into a child and she can now fight at full power,
which is cool,
and the fact that Grimmjow respects her to the point where he will actually spend time with her and travel with her as a group, shows me that if Grimmjow respects her ability,
then she must be strong
too. She is a lot stronger than she seems. Also, Nell kind of has a second release form right now, so she can improve her power in the time skip 100 times her base. Coming in last on the ranking for the Espada is Grimmjow. Now, surprisingly, Grimmjow is the current strongest Espada. Not because he is one of the few that are actually still alive in the story while Starrk, Yammy, and Ulquiorra are dead, but because he has legitimately surpassed them in power as of the war arc and the novels. The first thing he does when he sees Shikai Ichigo is try to fight him, showing that he isn't intimidated by his
he's like, I'm gonna have a go at that.
Was, alongside the fact that Yuha complemented this same Ichigo's power at the time, referring to the fact that this is his true power and he's stronger than he's ever been. Now, this isn't to say that Grimmjow's on their level, because I don't believe that's actually the case, but it shows that he's definitely relative to this Ichigo, especially if you consider that he now has a second release form, which was approved by Taite Kubo pretty recently. He was also able to one-shot Asuka Knucklevar, an individual so
that was cool when he jumped in and got that guy.
Ichigo all had trouble with. Now, sure,
that was
it was
class.
a cheap shot, but he was able to
still
neg
did
Asuka Knucklevar in one blow to the point where he became a suicide bomber. Another argument you could also make is that why didn't Asuka Knucklevar's Blood Vein protect him? You could just say, oh, Grimmjow was so strong that he was able to pierce through the Blood Vein, because we know Blood Vein can activate on its own when someone's in danger. It does this when Ichigo gets shanked in the neck, and it actually stops the blow. So yeah, I'm going to assume that that final blow wasn't just a dog shot, and it was actually impressive. Some will say
like
Grimmjow at this stage is
I love that. Grimmjow just followed the path that was led and just went boom.
But it seems like people forget because this also happened to Ichigo and Yoruichi. So that logic's just, just a little silly. I honestly think if you make that argument, you need to be checked, because Asuka Knucklevar's power doesn't really matter. If you're, really strong, it just negs you. It's also shown that Asuka was sort of intimidated by Grimmjow's base, and he does run away to lead all of them into a trap.
He does, yeah.
Grimmjow's second release, he can improve his own power.
Ow, my leg's gone numb.
There's no reason to assume that had Grimmjow released straight away, flashed over, ripped off Asuka Knucklevar's head or heart, whatever he prefers, that the fight would have been done and dusted, but sadly that's not what happened. So it's just purely, once again, that his ability is incredibly hacks. Another big factor is to consider this. When Kenpachi watches Nell, Halibel, and Grimmjow all transform into their resurrections, Grimmjow is the only one that Kenpachi's interested in fighting. This
and
is
that
implies Kenpachi only wants to fight the strongest
person,
so much so that when Ichigo was running away from him, he actually sat down and gave up chasing him, and he also walked away from Nnoitra when he realized that he was too weak to stand a chance if the fight was to continue. Some will say straight away, well, it's because Halibel and Nell are girls. So explain to me why he happily fought Unohana to the death in the Muken where they could go all out, the Quincy girls, and has absolute respect for Yochiru. It's always been weird to me that people make that argument, because Kenpachi has never been shown to discriminate based on sex. I think he would fight anyone.
Yeah, he would. If they were strong, he'll fight them. He don't care.
Kenpachi wants to fight time skip Grimmjow, who is now confirmed to have a second release form, and this is the same way that he always wants to fight Ichigo. You're really strong, come here, let's battle once again. Then it's a sure sign to me that I'll take Bankai Kenpachi's word, the same guy who is stronger than any Espada at this point in the story, time skip or not, over these randoms and their headcanon reasoning. As an example, if Grimmjow was to fight some of the other Espada, Barragan's aging ability would get absolutely on by Grimmjow's spiritual pressure at this stage in the story. His speed far surpasses any Espada if he is relative to Ichigo in any form of his, and it's consistent with the story because this Ichigo is stated to be far stronger than any other form of Ichigo in the story. All you need to do is read this Yuha Bark panel on the screen and think to yourselves, why was Ichigo intimidated by Grimmjow when he pulled out his sword?
Yeah.
Grimmjow Jagajax is currently the strongest Espada.
There we go.
Now, real quick, fellas, I just wanted to give a huge thank you to Audible for sponsoring this Espada Rankings video. I've been listening to audiobooks through Audible for a few years now actually, and I recently finished a book thanks to them called The Art of War, which is quite a famous book that I'm sure some of you have heard of. The 13 chapters of The Art of War are devoted to one aspect of warfare each, were compiled by the high-ranking Chinese military general, strategist and philosopher Sun Tzu, and one of the greatest parts about Audible is the nostalgic, wholesome yet easily consumable way for you to be able to enjoy stories thanks to them. As it is as simple as putting on a podcast, though instead you're sitting there listening to someone read you an entire book, meaning you're pretty much guaranteed to either learn something or just be drawn into the amazing atmosphere of a story. Thanks to Audible for sponsoring today's video. Get your free 30-day trial, 1 free audiobook and 2 Audible originals here at audible.com/Clyde or text Clyde to 500 500. Thank you so much to Audible for sponsoring this video.
Well, that was a cool video. It's interesting because I was on Clyde's channel. I'm gonna have to watch it. I mean, you guys let me know. But like, he's done another video after this, which is was Ulquiorra the strongest Espada, and it's like 37 minutes long, something like that. So I don't know if there was a big uproar when he did this video and people were like, oh no, Ulquiorra's stronger. But there was a little problem with the numbers there as well. I went 12 and then 10 and then went from there, or something like that. But anyway, whatever. I agree with the ordering in that video. I can't really say otherwise. Thought that was pretty well done. All the comparisons and feats were there. You take this person's fight, the way this person reacts, and then blah blah blah. And I think that's fine. That's cool. No arguments here. But what did you guys think of that? What did you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch or discuss in future videos, and I'll see you guys. See you guys next time.